Today our session is going to be about anger being your guide. And already I've had the projection of some people's anger today before the group. So those of you who did that know who it was. I'll get you back at some time. The reason why this subject is such an important subject is that a lot of people don't realise that anger is a key guide for you in your own progression towards God. And the reason why anger is such a key guide is because it's something that we all generally have a habit of falling into at some point in time, or we have a habit of suppressing at some point in time. And underneath anger is just like usually this huge iceberg of emotions. And so knowing how to work your way through anger and knowing how to feel your way through anger and then getting to the underlying emotions is very, very important. So what I'm going to... many of you will notice that I emailed, I think most of you would have received one email by now. It was done last night, so if you haven't checked your email between last night and today, the outline for this. But what I'm going to do this time is not hand you the outline until the end of the session. Rather than, and that way we can interact a bit and go through the material in an interactive way, and then I'll hand you an outline as your notes that you can take home with you. Now, what I find with anger is that anger is this emotion that most of us at some point in our lives, and to be frank, most of us on a daily basis feel anger at some time. The problem is that the majority of times we don't recognise it, or we just see it as like a mild annoyance or just a little frustration or a little irritation here and there, that we have a tendency, particularly if we've been on spiritual paths, whether they be Christian or other religious basis or New Age, there is this tendency that we have to actually overlook the anger that we're actually feeling. The reason why that often happens is because we're so ingrained in this idea that anger means you're not spiritual, or anger means that you're not connected with God, or anger is wrong. Now, while it is true that anger is a very damaging emotion, and can be a very damaging emotion, particularly if it's held on to, the expression of anger is something that's a natural thing based on the deeper things that we choose to suppress. So for that reason, anger is a really good guide into your deeper emotions. Every single time you feel angry, frustrated, annoyed, or any of these even slight annoyance or slight irritation even, there is usually a huge emotion under it that you're avoiding, and you're choosing to avoid it. And what I'd like to do today is illustrate how to actually dig underneath that, start allowing your anger to surface, and then start allowing what's underneath the surface. Because in a lot of ways, your anger is also almost a gateway into these other emotions. And that's particularly the case if you had suppressed your anger when you were a child. Now, most of us have heavy suppressed anger from childhood. The reason why is that most of us, when we expressed our anger when we were children, what normally happened to us? You usually got a cloud over the ear, didn't you? Or you got something happen to you that was very painful. You might have got sent to your room. You might have got ostracised, punished. And there's lots of things that happen to little children in order to shut down their anger. Often we get ignored, like when we're angry. So I'm being angry as a child and then I'm getting ignored. What's that teaching me? I'm not going to get loved while I'm angry. I've got to stop being angry if I'm going to be loved. So there's a lot of hidden messages that come to a little child right from the time they're very, very young that causes them to suppress their anger and their rage. And unfortunately, there's usually a layer placed on top of their anger and rage. So for a child, for example, let's say we're a child, say a 3 or 4 year old child. At 3 or 4 years of age, we are almost the perfect reflection of what our parents are denying. So if our parents are having an emotion, let's say the parents have an emotion where they feel unloved. As a child, if I'm 3 or 4 years of age, I'll be perfectly reflecting that emotion. In other words, the child will be feeling unloved. And then what the child does is reflects that emotion through the law of attraction back to the parent. So when the parent denies an emotion, the child acts out the emotion. And then what does the parent generally do? Punish the child for acting out the parent's own emotion. Now, how frustrating is that? If you got punished every single time, and this is what happened during your childhood, you got punished probably every single time you acted out one of your parents' emotions that they were trying to deny. And most of us grew up in this kind of environment. So here we are, trying to connect. We're just the perfect little reflectors. We can't even help ourselves being a perfect reflector when we're so young like that. And instead of being allowed even to reflect the emotion back at our parent, the reflection is actually suppressed through punishment, or through the parent's anger, or through the parent's rejection, and that just bottles up huge amounts of emotions in us. And the only way to access those underlying emotions is going to be to go through the bottled up anger that's there as a child and into those other bottled up emotions that were before the anger even arose. So can you see that knowing how to and dealing with anger is going to be a very essential part of your own progression? The other issue that we face is often as an adult, because of these childhood emotions, we start creating a lot of things about ourselves that are not true. We create these fictitious viewpoints of ourselves that we then want to maintain as an adult. And we'll do almost anything to defend the castle. And rage or anger is a major way of defending the castle. Like, how do you find dealing with someone who's angry with you? Don't you find that it's really difficult? Like, isn't it difficult because what are they doing? They're trying to control you and manipulate you generally, or they want something from you that you're not giving them. And so it's a major way that we can use to actually explore having others do what we want. And so anger becomes a way in which we can control others. Like, you go to a supermarket, who's the one who gets the free product? Like, that they got a bad product, let's say, and they get the free product as well as the original product, the good one, in return. Who's the one? Usually it's the one who goes up there and who's the irate customer, isn't it? You notice that, how that happens a lot? The irate customer gets served, and the person who's nice and calm and collected and waiting to be served, they get forgotten. But why is that? Because anger is what we're so used to responding to. We're so used to responding to anger rather than actually love. And that's why these things happen in our daily life. So it's really, really important to look at this issue of anger. But before we start, what I would like to do, and to just connect you to emotionally to the subject, is play some mediumship that I did around, it would have been a year or so ago, a year and a half ago now, when I was in Barbados with a lady called Natalie, who was a medium. And we actually finished up speaking to a group of slaves who had been in the spirit world for quite a lot of years, in the hells of the spirit world, for quite a number of years, and who had quite a lot of anger within them. And what I would like to do is play this recording for you. It takes some time. It's about, I think, a 45-minute recording altogether, explaining, where I go through a heap of things, explaining to these spirits the condition they're in, why they're in this condition, and so forth. And that'll just help you connect to how anger can lock you up and prevent you from actually progressing on your journey. You see, while I've said that anger is your guide, suppressed anger or unexperienced anger will be devastating to you. It will wreck your body and wreck your life, and in the spirit world do the same thing, unless you decide to experience it. And that's why it's so important to begin to look at this issue of anger. Now, I've had many discussions with anger over the years about the subject of anger to groups of people. So what I've tried to do in the outline that you will have got by now, or that you'll get after the session, is outline most of the reasons why we get angry. and outline most of the reasons or what we do to suppress our anger. So to be frank with you, many of you in the audience feel that you're not a very angry person, and yet a lot of the times I can feel extreme rage coming from you. And so that means that you've become so used to suppressing your anger that now you don't even know that you're angry. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of reasons why you do that. And what we want to do is start exposing those reasons. Then later in the session, what we want to do is start talking about some practical ways in which we can actually connect to our anger and start actually connecting even to what's underneath the anger. Because there's some really practical things you can do. And I'll be inviting somebody up. Ian will come up with his anger kit, and he'll show you some of the things that he does with his anger. And you'll see that you all have the choice to actually go into these emotions or avoid them. Now, if you choose to avoid them, you're going to have a pseudo covering of spirituality that has no substance. It's when you connect to them and experience them and release them that you'll have true spiritual connection with God. So that's why it's such an important subject. So what I'll do first is just play this recording. I'm sorry if it's not that clear, but hopefully you'll be able to hear it with the way I've got it set up. We'll just see how we go.